what you're supposed to think when you hear chosen. We bring all this loaded jargon to this word, and I don't think sometimes we relate to it with the pleasure and worship we're supposed to. Okay? So if you're avoiding it, if you're obsessing about it, let's come to the table. You're both wrong. Okay? The people who relate to this word kind of in a negative fashion tend to be process theologians. They tend to be over here and they try to make God a little bit too immanent, meaning small. They try to bring him down into our process and make him too human, because if God knows about what's coming and there's so much suffering in the world, that means he's at fault. And if I'm going to believe in a good God, he can't know everything that's happened that's bad to me. So I need to bring him down into my reality, make sure he doesn't know the suffering that's coming, so he's not guilty. I can't blame him, so he's still good. But that means he can't know things until I do them. So he can't choose me, he can't predestine. And so we then start to make choosing and predestination about our choice, what we call free will. That we choose first and, Christ saw it. So he's like, oh, good, I'm going to go ahead and choose them. And we put man before God. That tends to be process theologians. It's the perpetual plan B God. Surprised that Adam and Eve sinned, and he just showed up on the scene and was like, oh, dang, I need to come up with a different plan. Okay? It skews love because the Bible says Christ first loved us. This is love, that he first chose us. We try to preserve choice and say we have to have choice to love God, but no, we preserve his choice. He first loved us. Then on the other side, you kind of have the determinists. They try to make God not too immanent, like too human. They try to make him too immanent, too big, so sovereign that they eliminate human interaction. And this is also a skewed view of love, because when we look at Jesus, because it talks about Jesus being determined by the Father, foreknown by the Father to come and die, even before the foundations of the world, Jesus had a vibrant relationship with the Father. And he was always on search for what the Father was doing. So it's clear that God was going before Jesus in a way that Jesus did not know, but that Jesus' choice to follow was still important. So the determinists try to erase all that relationship, and it becomes kind of more of a deistic religion. This one becomes more of a humanistic religion. Okay, we go to the extremes. But 1 Peter, I believe, balances it, because 1 Peter uses some words that kind of relate to chosen, but does it in a Godward way. And I want to show you why. 1 Peter 1:1-2 says this. Peter calls himself an apostle of Jesus, same thing Paul does here, to those who are elect. He's writing to the elect. Where? People who had been scattered everywhere in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. So he's saying God has chosen, elected people in all these areas according to what? His foreknowledge of God the Father in the sanctification of the Spirit for obedience to Jesus and for the sprinkling with his blood. So he's saying God foreknew them, elected them for what? To know the Father, to be sanctified by the Spirit, to be able to obey Jesus. It's not our choice, it's his choice, and to be forgiven by his blood. So you're going, he chose us for all these things? Well, that should already awaken in you a sense of just amazement. You should go, what would he do that for? Why? Have you seen my life? But we start to dig into these terms and say, well, no, he couldn't do that, and he couldn't know this, because if he knew this, then what about all the suffering, and why do bad things happen to good people? We all go into all those things. But then 1 Peter in the same chapter talks about Jesus. Peter talked about us as being elect and foreknown. Now he's going to talk about Jesus as elect and foreknown in the same way we are. So Christ was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but was made manifest in the last time for the sake of you. Same word. So if we're plan B and we think that God has to erase foreknowledge and can't know what's coming before, then sending his son was a surprise. And that erases all the scriptures that tell us that Christ basically was everything that came in the Old Testament was a shadow pointing what Christ would fulfill. That would erase prophecy. That would erase everything. That would erase the character of God. That would erase his foreknowledge, his wisdom, everything. If we're on the deterministic side and we're foreknown and elect and chosen in the same way Jesus is, We have to look at Jesus' life to describe what that looks like. If we describe it as this removed God who just does everything for us despite our will, then we erase all those moments where Jesus was praying to the Father for God to do things on his behalf. All those times where Jesus was looking for what the Father was going to do. All those times that Jesus, look at the cross. When Jesus got to it, he said, God, take this cup from me, please. But if it be your will, I will do it. So you notice that the Father had set in place something that a seat that Jesus had to be in. In the same way, there are some of those ways for us. And we need to grapple with that. My job here right now is not to necessarily take a theological stance, even though I have my opinion, but to show you a balanced view that Peter's going to throw both of these pendulums that are in chaos because they're theologically idiotic. And he's going to throw them into balance and say, weigh it against the man of Jesus. Stop weighing it against your theological books and the person you think is great on your little podcasts, and weigh it against the person of Jesus, because you're both wrong, because you're both weighing it against yourself, not Jesus. And what you should feel is a sense of awe, thankfulness. God chooses for his reasons, and you get to be included. It's all about love. Not that we chose him, but that he chose us. Just let the weight of that sit.